Hello and welcome to my video all about how to knit bobbles. Now bobbles are a 3D textural element that you can add to all sorts of knitting projects, and you can make them in a variety of sizes. Although they're fairly simple to knit, if you've never knit a KFB increase, then please have a look at my video on that technique and give it a practice before you try bobbles. Okay, so here you can see already on my sample that I've done a few bobble sizes. I've got a couple of smaller bobbles on the outside and a larger one on the inside. You'll usually find that bobbles are created between 2 and 5 stitches wide. Today I'm going to show you bobbles that are 3 stitches wide and 5 stitches wide, but no matter what size you want to make, the basic method is the same. Okay, so for this sample I've been doing stockinette stitch and I'm just about to knit a right side row, which means I'm going to be knitting knit stitches. So all I do is knit up to the place where I want to knit the first bobble. I then do a KFBF increase, which stands for knit in the front, the back and then the front again. So you basically start the knit stitch off as you normally would, but just before the point where you would normally push the stitch off the top of the needle, you swing the right hand needle around to the back and push that needle down through the back of the top stitch. And then you do the normal steps of a knit stitch until the point where you would normally push the stitch off the needle. And then instead you knit into the front of the top stitch again. So you take your right hand needle up through the front of that top stitch and go through the normal steps of a knit stitch. So we've now knit in the front, the back, and now we're knitting in the front again. And that's the last stage, so this time you push the stitch off the top of the needle. This is a double increase, so you've now made 3 stitches from 1 stitch. You then need to swap the needles between your hands, like so. The working yarn, therefore, will be brought to the front of the needles. And you're now going to purl 3 stitches. So you're just purling the 3 stitches that you just made in the increase. Once you've done that, you swap the needles between your hands again, and then you knit 3 stitches. You then swap the needles around again and purl 3. Then you swap them again and knit 3. So you've basically now knit, purled and knit the same 3 stitches. And that's what creates the 3D effect of the bobble. The last stage is to PSO, or pass stitches over. So all you do is take your left hand needle and pick up the second stitch down on the right hand needle. Take it over the top stitch and drop it off the end of the needle. This leaves you with 2 of the 3 stitches still on the right hand needle. You then repeat that, so you pick up the second stitch down, which was the third stitch down, take it over the top stitch and drop it off the end of the needle. This leaves you with just 1 stitch from the original 3 on the right hand needle. And that is the bobble completed. This is a relatively small bobble, and the next one I'm going to show you is a large bobble at 5 stitches wide. So again, I knit up to the point where I want to place the bobble, and then I do a KFBFBF. So that's an increase of 4 stitches. So you knit in the front, the back, the front, the back, and then the front again. So you start off a knit stitch as normal, but don't complete it. Swing the right hand needle to the back and take the needle down through the back of the top stitch. undo the stages of a knit stitch to bring the needle back to the front, and then repeat. So you take your right hand needle up through the front of the top stitch and knit, then down through the back of the top stitch and knit, and then finally up through the front of the top stitch again, and this time you complete the knit stitch. You can now see on the right hand needle that you have 5 stitches, and those 5 stitches have been created from 1 stitch from the left hand needle, so that's an increase of 4. You now need to swap the needles between your hands and then purl 5 stitches. Swap the needles again and then knit those 5 stitches. Then swap and purl 5, and then swap again and knit 5. Now we need to decrease from 5 stitches to 1 on the right hand needle. So again, you use your left hand needle to pick up the second stitch down, take it over the top of the top stitch and drop it off the end of the needle. You then repeat this 3 more times. So pick up the second stitch down, take it over the top stitch and off the needle. Second stitch over the first and off the needle. And finally the second stitch down, over the top stitch and off the needle. That gives you just 1 stitch of the original 5 on the right hand needle. I'm now going to do a few knit stitches just to more easily show you what that bubble looks like. Okay, so there you go, you can see the large bubble now, and you can see how it compares in size to the smaller bubble I previously did. Just bear in mind that the bigger the bubble you make, the tighter the stitches are going to get when you do that original increase. So practically speaking, I wouldn't recommend doing a bubble that's more than about 6 stitches wide. Okay, so that's it. That's the bubble tutorial, and I really hope it's been useful for you. Thank you very much for watching.